Okay, welcome to this series of Shetland traditional fiddle lessons. My name is Jenna Reid and we're going to be doing lots of different sorts of tunes from Shetland, both traditional and contemporary. And all the materials for these lessons can be found online, so I do hope that you've had a look at those pieces of information. It's all for your benefit. So we're going to begin today on this first lesson with a traditional tune, and very much so the music in Shetland is reels, and this was always used for traditional dancing, and that's very different from the rest of Scotland, and that there was less jigs and hornpipes and strathspeys. Some of those didn't exist at all in Shetland, and it was basically just the reels. And as I said, this was built around the traditional dancing, which was done all over Shetland in the different islands. So we're going to begin with a reel called The Fashion of the Delting Lasses, and Delting is a place in the north towards the west of Shetland, and it's a small area, and so this is a traditional reel, and I'll play it through for you. Just before we start, we'll just make sure that we're in tune, and I'll start off by giving you the open strings. So start off with an A string, a D, and the G, and then the last one, the E. Okay, so now that we're all in tune, I'll play this reel for you, and I'll do it at the kind of usual speed of a reel. And as I said, this is a traditional tune, so I'll play this one for you now. So, The Fashion of the Delting Lasses. Something very different to the other sorts of tunes that you've heard from the mainland of Scotland. And as we go through the tune and learn it, I'll be explaining why it's different, and what we're doing with the bow and our fingers to create the different sounds there. So a lot of the time what we're doing will be little phrases that are repeated back and forth, and so you'll probably recognise phrases that you've learnt, and that'll be coming back into the tune here and there. So we'll start off with the first half, and just get the notes just now. We'll worry about the bowing and the different ornaments that are happening later on. So the first phrase then starts on your open D. So that little part again. And once more. As you can see, once I lay down my second finger there, the F sharp, I'm holding it there, and it's just easier to do that rather than have your fingers lifting on and off the fiddle. So we'll just try that again and have a think about that. So that's great, and then the following phrase, we'll just go on to that one. And that one again. More. That's great. Now let's try and put those two together now. The first phrase, let's remember to keep our second finger down on that F sharp, and the following phrase starts on our G, just next door. So let's start that again from the beginning. So. first two phrases of the tune. The third phrase is a complete repetition of the first phrase. So let's just go back to that first one again, and let's see if we can join it on to phrases 1 and 2. So starting at the top then. And the third phrase here. So it's a complete copy of the first part. So let's just try those three phrases together a few times. So. So that was the three. And the fourth phrase, which is the last phrase in this tune, goes like this. I'll do that a few more times. So that's the entire first half, and that's a 4-bar first half, and that's very, very common in traditional tunes from Shetland. Very often, as I said before, these tunes were used for dancing. So the small halves of 4 bars repeated was to fit around the movements of the dancing, and as I said earlier, also very different to the mainland and the music of the mainland of Scotland. So let's go over that first half a few more times until we get a little bit more fluent with it. So we'll just play around it until until we've got it a bit better. So 1 and 2 and... So that was the first part for the Fashion of the Delting Lasses, and we're going to go on and learn the B part now, which is again another 4-part section which is repeated to make the total of 8 bars for the second part. So we're going to carry on with this B part, and the A part was very much centred around the D and the A string. Now when we go on to the second part, we're very much so on the A and the E string. And we're going to, as I said before, we're going to add in the ornamentation and the different things that go on within this tune later on. So we'll just again get our notes for this section and get comfortable with that before we add anything more to the tune. So the first section then of the second part begins like this. So. And I'll do that a few times through for you. So that was the first phrase, and I'll go on now and play the second phrase. And again a few times. Now let's see if we can put those two phrases together So the first phrase again, starting on our third finger, our D, and that's quite a long note, so remember, give that a nice full bow when we play that note. So. Let's go over those two phrases a few more times. So from the beginning of that. And let's go on and do the third phrase now. And again. And again. Now let's see if we can do phrases 1, 2 and 3 together. So starting again with our long third finger, long D, and and that's it, and it's the same as the first half. That third phrase is a repeated section from earlier in the first half, from the first phrase. So let's go over that 2 or 3 more times and then we'll add in the last phrase for the tune. So from the second part then. Now let's add in the last part now, which goes like this. So how about we try putting all of those 4 phrases together to make up the whole second half of this tune. So from the beginning of the second half again then, so. Now that was the first time through the second half of this tune. However, there's a slight change. When we play the repeat of this reel, then the ending is slightly different, and I'll play that for you now. I'll play the second half twice through, and on the second time you'll hear how it's a little bit different. So from the second half then. Okay, so that's the new ending that we're going to add in at the very, very end. We're going up to a high A there, instead of before we had this. We're going up to our G, our second finger, but the last time through we want to miss out that and add in our A instead. So I'll play that through for you now, the whole second half, and you can hear how the two things are different. So. times around that just to make sure we've got that ending. So the second half again. Okay, now let's try and go back to the top of the tune and let's try and play through it a couple of times. Now that we've got the notes under our belt, let's see if we can play through the tune. And after we've done that, we're going to then look at what else is going on within the tunes apart from just the note. We'll do a little bit more to the tune with our ornaments and our bowing. So from the beginning then, let's play this reel a couple of times through. So. So you heard the first time I played it through, I kept it very, very simple, and the second and third time I played it through, there was a lot more things going on there, and that's what we're going to talk a little bit about now, and I can explain to you what I'm doing there. It's only then that you can, after you've got the notes learned, that you can really put in all of these things. So make sure you've got the tune and all the notes and you're comfortable with that, and then now we can go on to put in the extra parts. So firstly, as you notice, a lot of the time there I am playing two strings simultaneously together instead of the one. So I started off playing on the more simplistic version, but what we're actually wanting to aim for is to get this A string and this D string running together. And this in Shetland is known as ringing strings, and it dates back to years and years ago in the 1800s when fiddle music was played in small croft houses all over Shetland, and it was when one or possibly two fiddle players would be playing for the dancing. And as you can imagine, at a dance, there'd be lots of noise and lots of merriment going on, and a fiddle player on his own would have to play quite loudly to raise his volume above the sound of the dancers and the night's noise. So this was the mechanism to make this happen, was basically to play two strings together instead of one. And this is also has strong connections to Norway and the relationship between the Shetland and Norwegian music. If any of you have ever heard hardanger music from Norway, then you'll recognise the similarities between these two traditions. as Shetland used to be part of the Danish Scandinavian Empire, the traditions between the fiddle music have remained very, very close, although Shetland is now part of Scotland. And so this is very, very much influencing our traditional music from Shetland. So the first part, as I said, the A and the D strings run together. So let's try and do the first phrase using that technique. So the opening note, which was our D before, as soon as we start that D, we want to be ringing our open A with it, and this is going to affect the chords and the sound that we were creating. So we've almost got this constant sort of ringing going on underneath the notes of the melody. So I'll just play that a little bit slower so you can see how it works. A very, very important part is also the bowing. As we were practicing it earlier, I was just playing open, I was playing just separate bows. However, you need to get the swing into it as it was dance music. So what we're going to do is slur the first two notes together on a down bow. That was the first three notes in fact there. So then we're therefore ready to start the next phrase on a down bow. And we're going to go on an up bow here. And the last phrase. Now as you can see there, I'm playing all the strong beats with a down bow, and that's very, very important. I think personally in traditional music, because it really accentuates the downbeat, and that's where you get your lift from, and the feeling in the music, that's where it comes from, the downbeat and your down bow. That's your strongest bow when you're playing the fiddles. So try and go for your downbeats and a down bow alongside that. So I'll just go over those things that we talked about again. So starting with that slur of notes on the down bow. Now that's the first part. Let's try and add in the ringing strings whilst we're doing those bowings. So from the beginning again. So you hear there how the rhythm works and how the down bow is very important and how it shapes the phrasing of the music. So as we were talking about the ringing strings there in the first section with the A and the D string together, those two strings will work through the whole of this first half, and those are the strings that you need to be thinking of to ring. So let's just go through the four phrases and see what we do to make that happen. So the first phrase again, then the second phrase. So all the time it's just your A and your D. And remember, the third phrase is the same as the first. them slowly together and we'll see how those ringing strings, how you can hear them ringing away in the background. So. So there you kind of get an idea of how that works. Your A and your D is always ringing through that section, and it takes a little bit of practice to get used to trying to play two strings at once, because we're always trying to play usually one string at a time and make that very clean, which is normal for most tunes. But for this sort of style, we want to try and create this ringing strings, and that what we need to do to make that happen is to play the two strings together and let the melody weave in between these two strings. So I'll just go over it one more time and you can have another listen of how it works. So that was without any bowing, just a way of showing you how the ringing strings work. When you've got that mastered, let's try and add the bowing into that, remembering that as often as possible we want to try and use a down bow for a downbeat, because that will create the rhythm and the lift in the music. We're going to go on to the second half. The second half is quite different in the ringing strings, because we're moving from the A and D, we're moving up to the A and the E string. So what we're going to do is we're going to use the way that this first note is a very long note. So the rest of it is quavers and this first note is a crotchet. So we want to make as much use of that note as possible. And as it's a D, we want to ring our open D along with it. So I'll just go over what I mean by that. So. Different to the first half in that most of the notes are exposed and are on their own up onto the E string, this section here. And it's only when we go back to our long third finger, the D, that we ring it with our open D. Now when we're going a little bit quicker, this D should be able to ring over the higher notes that you're playing on the E string. I'll just demonstrate that to you. So. So you can hear it quietly resonating as you play the higher notes that are exposed without any ringing strings. And at the end as well, we're going to add in the ringing strings because we're coming back to the A string, and I'll just demonstrate that as well. So. So that's how it works in the second half. There's maybe a fewer areas to concentrate on with the ringing strings, but in this tune those are the two areas to look out for: the ringing strings and the downbeat, trying to make that as emphasised as possible. And in the second half, this first chord with the two Ds is the obvious place where your down bow should go. Now to follow that with your two slurs on the up, will get you back into sync, so you're landing on your down again for your down bows. So what I mean is to go down here, so 2 slurs up after that down, and then we'll be back into our down bow movement. Now, as you saw there, on the repeat of the second half, I was starting on an up bow. So to correct that for later on, miss out the slur that we had the first time round. So we're landing on a down bow again. That's very, very important to remember to try and always look out for that. The middle section, which goes like this, you could bow that separately if you wanted, but another way to do it would be to bow 2, slur 2, bow 2, slur 2, which would be like this. And I'll just do that once for you, once more. So bow 2, slur 2, bow 2, slur 2. So. So that's the first tune that we've done for the lesson. I'll play it through a couple of times, and then you can hear how all of these things work together, and hopefully you'll be able to recreate the same sounds. So from the beginning then, the fashion of the Delting lasses.